Hi, I'm Mitch, and welcome to the Restoration Road. My guest today is my third of four daughters, Lilly and Faith Kruse. I'm going to walk Lilly through a template on how to be a champion for life. I sat down one day with a friend of mine, a fellow coach, Coach David Robinson, and we wanted to come up with a template that any athletic program, any athlete could follow, and it would have longevity. It would give purpose and meaning to competition inside those four lines. And I can't wait for you to hear how a teenage high school young lady will, off the cuff, think about how she can apply this to her life. Lilly, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
I've been wanting to talk about a strategic plan that Coach David Robinson and I put together for any athlete or any team to actually apply their faith to their sport so that the competition inside the four lines becomes an act of worship. And I want to walk you through that. You are a high school volleyball and softball player. You're one of the stats show you as one of the top hitters in the nation. I think you're third in the state in kills after leading for most of the season. We'll talk about how that happened. And you go to a Christian school, so you have an opportunity to live this out. You're in club volleyball. We're going to talk about how you do everything that we're going to discuss in this strategic plan. But the vision would be to be a champion for life. So the picture is a play on words that you're a champion for a lifetime, but you're also a champion for life. So it's eternal and it's abundant. It's in the present. So when I say, hey, Lilly, when you play volleyball, every time you serve, every time you pass, every time you block, every time you kill the ball, you should be a champion for life. What comes to your mind?
I think that every opportunity I have to touch a ball is an opportunity to get better. I've heard a great Olympian gold medalist, Scott Tazinski, at a camp say that if you're not getting better, you're getting worse.
Ooh!
So I think that every time I pass, every time I set, every time I hit, it's not just in the moment, but that will make an impact on the rest of my career.
As guy athletes, we have a tendency to go out and prove ourselves, whereas you're taking an approach to improve yourself, and that makes everything so much different. Your goals become different. The way you see everything is different. Mistakes aren't as big of a deal in that frame of mind. So a champion for life. Have you seen anybody, maybe it's a Scott Tazinski, but have you seen any other athlete that you admire for how they've applied this kind of a thing?
An athlete that I've seen as a role model for me in my life is my older sister, Kelsey. And I admire how her circumstances don't affect who she is as a player inside and outside of the four lines of competition, that she represents Christ and is a light for him. She's an encourager. She communicates at the highest level, and therefore she plays at the highest level due to her mental toughness and her spiritual relationship with Christ.
Yeah, I think there's something about sports that brings out the best and the worst in us, that when there's competition, there's something about our culture that's told us everything is okay to vent your anger and get every frustration out in your life in competition or in watching competition. It's okay. And I really think a lost and hurting world is watching in order to see if someone who wears Christian on their jersey really has it written on their hearts. Is there something different about them? Everything in the way that they train, how hard and how smart they train, to how they respond to issues. Do they encourage others on the court? Is it more than just about themselves? And it's really a great opportunity to honor God with how you train and how you perform. So a champion for life implies that that's the vision, that's what we want to see, is that when you're competing, you're honoring Christ, and it's not just for that moment, it's for a lifetime. And one of the ways I like to say it is, take a Bible verse and apply it, take any verse, and apply it to the next hour and a half of practice or the next hour and a half or 2 hours of a match, and make it sticky to what happens inside those 4 lines. Because odds are, if you cannot, then you won't be able to do it outside those 4 lines, because for the next hour and a half or 2 hours, that is your life. So how are you going to apply it? I think it's really good for athletes to wrestle with that. So the vision is a champion for life. The mission, what you do in order to accomplish that of being a champion for life, is dying to win. Another play on words, dying to win. I want you to read in your Bible Luke 9:23 and 24.
It says, "Then he said to them all, 'If anyone wants to come with me, he must deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life because of me will save it.'"
What's that mean to you?
One of my favorite things about this verse is that it says, take up your cross daily, that even the days when we're tired or we're upset about something, our emotions, we don't let that get to us, because even the tough days, those are the most important days to apply this verse, and that God doesn't choose the days that he loves us, but he loves us every day, so we should do the same for him.
Where'd you get that? That's huge. How'd you come up with that? 24/7. I like the daily, 24/7.
Christ influences me personally to want to strive for excellence, and I think that's one of the cool things about God, is that if we didn't have God, we would have no reason to want to do great, but because we have him, we want to be like him, and we want to mirror that in our lives on and off the court.
Colleges come, and they to get them to come, they got to see stats, so your kills, the amount of them, your kill percentage, your serve percentage, the number of aces, those are all personal stats. How do you look at personal stats and in some way surrender those to the team's success rather than making it all about you and your personal success?
It's a team sport, and we need everybody on board, everybody with the same level of intensity, with the same goal to win. And I think that when you have that in a team, the team becomes more of a family. And in a family, you love each other, and you have the same goal in mind enough to be a self-sacrificial love. And I think that's what it comes down to, that I want this next kill with the game on the line, not for my glory, but for God's glory, first of all, and for the team's success.
You can be the best hitter in the world, and if you don't get set, it's never going to happen, right? If you can't give a good pass to the setter, you're never going to get the ball set back to you.
If I'm the best hitter in the world but can't pass myself, then I still can't do anything.
Absolutely. It's definitely a team effort. It's the body of Christ pictured in a team, in an athletic team, and it's just amazing. I mean, it just won't work. It's just like if everybody was a hitter, it wouldn't work. If everybody was a setter, it wouldn't work. It takes all those integral parts in order to make it happen. But that includes hitters training to be the best hitters they can be, and the best teammates they can be. Passers training to be the best passers they can be. Setters training to be the best setters they can be. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's really a combination. It's both and. It's training for my individual talents that God's given me to develop those, but it's surrendering those to the team for the team's success. That makes sense?
Yes.
I love that. So champions for life, dying to win, dying to my selfishness, becoming selfless, and doing it for God's glory. It's not some trick where I can pretend that I'm dying to my selfishness. It's literally doing that, taking up my cross daily, 24/7. I want to spend some time on the values that we came up with, and I want to run them by you and just see if you've thought about these and how you would do this in your life. Discipline and disciple come from the same root word, and it means to be a learner. And as I studied the word discipline in Proverbs, I noticed that there were 4 contexts of how the Hebrew word was used. And I call it the track of discipline. There are 4 turns, And if you miss one of these, you're just going to end up in relational wreckage. And I've also examined, we'll talk about it at the end of this, that most of us only do a couple of them. We don't do all four. So it's teach, train, test, transform. Have you heard me talk about this?
Yes.
Do you know the definitions? Teach, I do, you watch. I do, you watch. Every coach needs to demonstrate and speak what we're actually going to do. And the players, they watch that. And unfortunately, that's where it stops for a lot of coaches, is they just do the I do, you watch, and then it's over. I look at kind of a whole different area of life of my dad in the family auction business. He made me get up every Saturday morning, and I couldn't watch cartoons. I'm like cartoon deprived. And he would take me to auctions. I was carrying clerk sheets back and forth from where the auction actually took place to the cashier where people would pay. And it's a picture of how we should be even in our faith, that we're going to catch our faith values are caught more than they're taught, usually from our families or from a mentor or from a coach. How has teaching I do, you watch taken place in your life? Have you been a student of a coach, and then have you actually taught anybody else?
I have been a student of many coaches, and I think that's the first step. That's where the foundation's laid, especially with volleyball. I mean, I couldn't learn to hit before I knew the steps of an approach. And so their teaching takes place, the left, right, left, saying it aloud as I do it would move into the next steps of discipline. And then I've taken what I've learned from teachers in my life, like you or like my volleyball coach, and I've tried to apply that in teaching people younger than me, teaching people who look up to me, teaching Haley, my younger sister, her being 4 grades younger than me, and she needed the same foundation. She couldn't learn how to hit like she saw me or like she saw Kelsey hit until she learned the left, right, left.
And so Will Robbins has been really influential.
Yes.
In that role. You've trained with him since, what, 7th grade?
Mm-hmm.
And so about almost 3.5 years of training with him has given you just the right teaching at just the right time, I think, to help you develop to be the best you can be. And then you've learned how to translate that to somebody else. So that's teach. And we're going to spend more time on discipline than the other values because I think it's so important. Turn 2 is train. I do, you help. It's, again, my dad taking me to auctions and eventually training me how to auctioneer. I remember the first time he did that, I didn't want to do it. And we had this portable PA system, and he wanted me to sell these jars in a cellar. And they weren't worth a lot of money, and that's why he was letting me do it. And there were a handful of bidders, and I said, I won't do it unless they can't see me. So we took the cord, the microphone, and went around the wall, and I stood in another room while the speaker was in the room where the bidders were. And I said, quarter, half a dollar, 75, a dollar, quarter dollar, $50, 75, $2, sold, $1.75. And that was my first time ever auctioning. And I look back at that, and that's basically the beginning of the training that took place for the rest of my life. I do, you help. I started working the ring with my dad, yelling in bids and things like that. As an athlete and as a coach, we can't just teach, we can't just demonstrate. There has to be a drill that trains. Can you think of a drill for volleyball that's helped you train as well as any other?
I think one of the most influential sets of training that I've had in my volleyball career has been private lessons with Will Robbins. And in that, we do a drill where he will set to me, I'll pass to him, he'll set to me, and I'll hit. And we'll do that for a long time.
An hour at a time.
Yeah. And he will set up a scenario of this is sectional championship match against your rival school. Give me the score, give me the game point, and he'll talk me through it, color commentate it, and that puts me into the game scenario. And I feel like that's a very influential way to train.
Oh, it makes it real.
Yeah.
It makes it game-like. I think you got to train like it's game-like, or it's not really training.
Right.
And then on another note, I think you have Laura Hibbard training you not only in as your high school coach in the sport of volleyball, but also spiritually. Can you talk about that?
That has been one of my favorite things about playing for Laura Hibbard, is she cares so much more and so far beyond just our development as players. She cares about our hearts, and she cares about our development as women of God and as children of Him. And she loves us genuinely, and she will set aside time in our practice to talk about God and to share her story with us, to hear what's going on in our lives, and to try to just be that woman in our life who can just reach our hearts and who can be a listening ear. She doesn't have to give advice if we don't want it. She's just very good at judging the situation and being able to be there and to be what we need in that time. And I just love how she has been a rock for whatever team she coaches because of that.
That's powerful. So that's the training. We got teach, I do, you watch, train, I do, you help. Turn 3 in this value of discipline, to be a champion to life, to die to win, is test. Test would be you do, I help. In a sports scenario, it's a scrimmage. It's interesting when you have people actually play. Let's say you've done all the drills you can, and then you actually have the scrimmage, and you actually play a game, play a match. All the impurities begin to come to the top. You see the mistakes, the left, right, left maybe not happening. Maybe it was right, left, right. Or, all these things start coming to the top. And it's that opportunity to actually play and see, okay, where do we fall short? It's critical, it's huge. In life, in a family business, the way my dad did this with me is he would just throw me in there. I remember at Cincinnati, we had a small collector car auction, and Labor Day weekend was around the corner, which was a huge collector car auction, ended up being the 3rd largest crowd drawing event in Indiana. And my dad saw this beautiful 1959 Cadillac Eldorado Brits convertible coming in as the next car, and he said, "Mitchell, I want you to sell this." And I learned later that the seller was really upset. What in the world is Dean Kruse letting this kid who's just barely 18 auction my car? And I auctioned it that day, and it brought a world's record price. I look back, it's a God thing. That's not me. I wasn't the best auctioneer in the world. But you know what? I worked hard. I had been taught, I had been trained, and this was one of my first tests. And I remember it vividly. I found out about 10 years later that 59 Cadillac Eldorado Brits convertible owner came up to me and said, "Do you remember in Cincinnati?" I go, "Oh, yeah, I remember it like it's yesterday." It's one of the first cars I ever auctioned. He said, "I was so upset with your dad that he let this 18-year-old guy auction it." He said, "But do you know that for 10 years, I've requested that you sell my car every single time?" And he said, "It's because I know you will work hard. I know you try hard." And he said, "You did that day, and you still do." And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget the value of a test and how important that is as an athlete. You've had a lot of scrimmages, a lot of matches. Can you think back to any of those where it's all over and you think, an impurity came to the top I need to work on?
I've obviously had so many impurities rise to the top just through playing. I mean, one of them being leaning.
Yeah, you were throwing your elbow instead of throwing your elbow like Peyton Manning does to rotate to throw a spiral. You were throwing your elbow and dodging your shoulder down.
I think it's important that when we see those impurities that we don't let it discourage us, but we let it be an encouragement that we're not done, we're not going to plateau, we still have things to work on, we can still get better, and that it's not about perfection, it's about progress and striving for that perfection.
That's good. That's insightful. It's not about perfection, it's about progress?
That's actually Will Robbins for you.
Sir William coming out through Lilly already, so you are getting the teaching, training, and testing from him. And turn 4, transformation. So transform, it's a picture of correction. The impurities have come to the top, and now we're going to remove those. We're going to do the correction that needs to take place. But it's also a picture of my job is to get myself out of a job. My job as a parent with you is to get myself out of a job. You need to be able to teach, train, test, transform the next generation and in your own life. I can't do it for you. And I've realized with your older sisters how little time window I have to do that. I used to not think it was only 18 years. I used to scoff at that and said, I'll be around them their whole lives. It's not. It's dramatically different when we drop you off at college. You now have to teach, train, test, transform on your own. Transform is you do, I watch. I remember one time at an auction, here's a life scenario. It was Labor Day weekend again, and I had worked with an estate collection that was one of the best car collections in the world, actually. And just so happened that year that we sold a lot of magnificent classic cars. And I got done with selling a majority of that one particular car collection. And, you know, cars are selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars change hands in a very short time in that moment. And I step away from the microphone. I'm going to switch, I think with my dad, he's going to auction. And he looks at me and he says, "You are the best in the world." Now, that meant a lot to me for a couple of reasons. One was he taught, trained, tested, and transformed me. He took me from the kid who couldn't watch cartoons to what he was calling the best auctioneer in the world in the collector car arena. He knew what it took to be the best. He knew all the work I had done prior to that. He knew all the marketing and promotions all over the world that had taken place that I had led. He knew the structure of the auction that I had led and that kind of thing. And that was a big deal to me. And there's something inside each one of us that we want to hear that from our fathers. And that is as such a day for me that I'll never forget it. I'll never forget that. He didn't say that a lot before that. I don't know if he ever did before that. I'm not sure he ever said it to me again after that. I mean, I remember a couple similar things. That was a pivotal moment in my life. Can you look back and see how something has gotten corrected? There has been transformation. You're now mastering a particular area or beginning to master. You're still young in your career, which is hard to imagine, but how you're beginning to master something in your career.
When I think about transformation in my volleyball career up to this point, I can't help think of winning gold at Bluegrass with my club team this past season. And
that was so exciting.
As you can imagine, it's a huge tournament. Whistles blowing, balls bouncing everywhere, shoes squeaking, everybody screaming every time a point is won over the span of the entire facility, which is huge. There's like eruptions of the crowd. Mm. But in that moment when we won gold, I mean, I can remember the timeout before, the last timeout before the end of the match, Will saying, like, this is really happening, like, we're going to win a tournament. And so, like, go out there and make it happen. Wow. It was almost like it seemed unreal, like we shouldn't be actually winning. But just with that reinforcement of this is, like, we deserve this, we've earned it. So go out there and finish it. And, I mean, when we won that, like everything, the chaos going on around us, like nothing else mattered but you and your team.
It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'll never forget it. I just want to quickly, just quick answers. The remainder of the acronym DYING. The Y is just yakking as a term for communication. How important is communication in being a successful athlete and person?
Communication is key. I feel like there is nothing more important if you don't have communication as a foundation in a sport, then you're in trouble. Because if I can't call the ball, if I can't call where I want the ball, then my setter has no idea where to go, what to do. We're going to be colliding. There's just going to be utter chaos amidst the court, and coaches just wanting to enforce that. And it's not just communicating, it's communicating loudly and confidently. And I think that that's a skill that needs to be mastered for any athlete.
It's beautiful. How about intensity? That's the I in dying to win. If light is fragmented, well, it helps us see a little bit. But when it's focused, light can burn a hole through steel, laser beam focused. How's intensity help an athlete?
I think intensity makes the sport more fun. I think that's the fun part about playing a sport. And I mean, ultimately, people will tell you that they started playing a sport because they enjoy it. And I don't find it enjoyable if everybody isn't on the same page with the same intensity and focus.
Oh, yeah.
I think one person's intensity or lack of can define a whole match. I think that it comes down to communication, being loud, that shows intensity, that going for every ball. We have an unwritten rule in the club that no body hits the floor, or no ball hits the floor without a body hitting the floor. And I think that playing, you want that player as your teammate. And I think that's what every athlete wants to strive for, is to be the teammate and the player that other people want to play with, that other coaches want to coach. And I think an intense player is that player.
Beautiful. Never give up. Never give up on the team, for the team, with the team, family.
I think that also goes hand in hand with intensity, that no matter the circumstance, no matter what's going on, that you're going to take this next play, you're going to forget about the mistake from before, and you're going to focus on the next play, and you're going to make it happen. You're not going to doubt yourself, you're not going to doubt your teammates, but you're going to go out there and you're going to finish it.
Beautiful. Finally, God, His heart, His kingdom, His word, His people, you make it an act of worship. I think you've already articulated that playing for God is a whole different concept than just playing for selfish statistics. Lilly, thank you so much for being here today. You are amazing. You've been the USA Athlete of the Week by the Indianapolis Star in volleyball. You were the Max Preps Player of the Week for the state of Indiana. Your future's bright, and I just am so proud of you because of the process that you're bringing to this journey, and that you're playing volleyball and softball as an act of worship to the God of the universe, and you want to pay it forward and help others do the same.
Thank you. Love you.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and our prayer is that you would be a champion for life in whatever you're doing, whether it's inside or outside those four lines of competition, that you would learn more about what Jesus taught about dying to yourself, dying to win, letting go of your selfishness in order to advance the cause of Christ in whatever it is you're doing, and that you would experience that discipline, the yakking or the communication, the intensity or focus, the leadership God's designed for you, that you would never give up, and that you would do it all for the glory of God, for it's in His name that we play.